Oh hey guys, I'm Matt Gary, and this is part 2 of how to make custom password reset and welcome emails for your Salesforce communities. Alright guys, so we're back here with part 2 of the how to build customized password reset and welcome emails for your community users. If you didn't watch part 1 of this, you should, or you're going to be kind of confused. So go on ahead and go back to that video, watch it first, and then come back to this one. And in this one, we're going to go over the more technical side of things. So how to conditionally render portions of a Visualforce component, as well as how to set up a trigger to send these emails to the different types of users. Yeah, let's just get into how to conditionally render these portions of the Visualforce component. Now, why do you need to actually have a Visualforce component that conditionally renders based on profile or whatever you're conditionally rendering it on? Because as you probably have figured out by now, you can only have killing me. You can only have one email associated to your welcome email for a community or for your password reset, especially for your community. Oh, did I click Builder? What am I doing? Real good start so far. In a normal email situation, you could probably build just a bunch of custom emails and send them out based on what profile it is, etc., etc. But especially for this forgot password one, you can't. It'll only send out the password email or the link for the password reset if it's stuck in one of these two categories. So anyway, now that we know why we would do this, let's get into how we can do this. So let's go in here, and we will make, not a class yet, although we'll make one of those soon. We'll make a Visualforce component called, we'll just say tight pass reset. So the Toits communities password reset. And the first thing we'll need to do is declare this with an access of global. Why do we have to do that? Because Visualforce email templates, or email templates in general, but Visualforce email templates, they'll only allow you to add components in them that have a global access. Otherwise, they'll say, can't do it, man, sorry. And then we will add a controller. So we don't have this controller made yet, but we'll call the controller the tight pass reset controller. And we'll need one more thing. We'll need an Apex attribute whose name will be contact ID passed, and the you have to do a description. So the description will just be contact ID passed from email template. And we will do a type of ID because we're passing in an ID. And we will have an assign to. And the assign to is actually going to be a variable in our controller. So we'll call this the contact ID passed controller. All right. And what am I doing? There we go. Close the tag. Okay, now we need to make a class. Let me just explain what this is real quick if you're not familiar with it. An Apex attribute on a Visualforce component basically just allows you to pass a variable directly into the component. So that basically this is saying, when you declare this component, you also need to declare and pass a value to this attribute. And you'll see that in a minute when we get back to the email template. So let's create a new Apex class, and this Apex class will be called what we declared it as up here. So toit pass reset controller, and there we go. And we need to also declare this variable. So we'll do public ID, this guy, get set. You have to do this getter and setter here for this variable so that you can access it in the Visualforce page and get and set it in the Visualforce page. The other thing we're going to do is go ahead and declare a method called get profile name, and this can be whatever it is for you that's going to be your determination as to whether or not your block gets rendered. So for me, in this example, it's going to be profile name. So I'm going to declare a string of profile name and return that profile name. And I'll explain this method in a little bit more detail here in a second. But what we're going to do is we're going to get a list of users, users from contact, and then we'll grab the profile name from there. So we'll say select profile name from user where contact ID equals contact ID passed to the controller. Cool. So now theoretically we have a list of a list of profile names, really. Well, it's a list of users that we have the profile name for that are associated to our contact, and ideally you should always put a limit on here. In our case, it should only ever return one thing. So then we'll check to see whether or not our user from contact list is empty. So if we successfully found a user linked to our contact, then let's continue, and we will assign our profile name string to actually I don't need to do that, to our users from contacts first list items profile name. Boom. Okay, so let me just explain what we did here real quick, if you're not super comfortable with Apex. What we did here is we're saying, okay, let's declare a method that's called getProfileName, and let's have that method return a string, so a bunch of text. And then to figure out our profile name, our profile name string that we're going to return, we're saying, okay, let's get the profile name. Then, so this is a relationship. If you didn't know, and for standard objects, so on user there is a field called profile ID, and there's also like contact ID, account ID, etc., etc. You can just delete the ID and put the dot, and then get any field on this object that you can think of, or that's available rather. Okay, so then we're saying, okay, get this list of users and grab their profile name, and let's now we're going to see whether or not we successfully got anything in our list of users. And if we did, we know that we can take the first element in our list, because we only have one, and we will assign our profile name string the profile name from our user. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, I'm sorry. Alright, so how do we conditionally render something in our Visualforce page? You can't, for email templates, for Visualforce email templates, you can't use page blocks. So that's out of the question. You can't use the rendered attribute on that. But what you can use is just a regular div, and you can conditionally render it using a style. So in Visualforce, you used to be able to do this, which is real nice and convenient. I gotta say, you could just say if for basically anything, and it will change, what goes into your tag, in this case your style tag for your div, based on your if condition. So let's say if profile name is equal to our, what was it, customer community plus login user, that was the guy. And if actually I don't think it matters, and if it is, then we'll do display block, and if it isn't, and we'll do display. Actually, this won't matter, so I'm gonna go back and switch it. None. Okay, so let me just switch these to the right types of quotes, or else the code's gonna get confused. So these should be in single quotes since they're wrapped in double quotes. So we got the double quote style there. What we're saying here is if our profile name method returns a value of customer community plus login, then we will display this div. Otherwise, we will not display it. And this might be confusing because I'm just saying profile name, and in our controller we actually named this get profile name. But in Visualforce, if you name something get profile name, and then you try and you reference it in your Visualforce controller, you do not have to put the word get, or sorry, in your Visualforce component. You don't have to put the word get in front of it. So you only have to put the profile name in front of it. And that's super confusing, I know, because I didn't know that for a long time, and I got real confused for a couple days about how a page was actually operating. But that is what's happening. This is saying if the get profile name method returns us a value of customer community plus login, render the block, render the div, otherwise don't. So, and then what we can do in here is we can say href is equal to, wow, I did that wrong. href is equal to the, no, that one, network user URL for user emails, and we'll section that off there, or end the tag, and we'll say click here to reset your password. Okay, and we'll just put a paragraph tag up here that says, hi row, what up, because yes. And we'll save this, and I'm going to show you some real wonderfully interesting things that you're going to run into if you're not aware of them. Things that I wasted days of my life trying to figure out. So, all right, the last thing we'll do is we're going to go back to our Visualforce email template, and let me just refresh this because everything else thinks I timed out. And we're going to, instead of having those things that we had in there in the last video, we're going to just import our component. So our component's name was something that I don't remember, called TweetCom Pass Reset. Boom. And then it had an attribute of contact ID passed, and we'll set that equal to recipient.id, and then we have to do it like that. Okay, so let me just make sure I spelled this right, recipient ID, and make sure I got the right name, contact ID passed. We'll just copy and paste it just in case. Okay, cool, I got it right. So basically what this is saying is let's pull in our password reset or Visualforce component, and for its one attribute that it has declared on it, let's send it the ID of our contact because the recipient is our contact. Cool. And we will save this. And you can already see that it did indeed bring in that component, Visualforce component, which is great. So we can already see that so far so good here. Let's just see the very frustrating thing that happens. So right now, in our community, we have our send welcome email set up to be our custom password reset email. So the one that we were just looking at, this guy, custom password reset email. And ideally, it should render this only if we have a customer community plus login user. But let me show you the wonderful, wonderful, wonderful thing that it does. If you have it as the welcome email specifically. So let's go to Terrence McGilligan, and this is just a contact I made. Just to reiterate what I said, in the last video, you need for a community user, you need a first name, a last name, an account, and ideally you'd put an email in here so that it just got brought over to the user. So we're gonna just disable this guy, and we're going to re-enable this user. Oh, real quick, before I do this, if you haven't, which you probably haven't because I have not gone over it, add another member to this community. So in the last video, we only had the customer community plus login user as a member of the community. Now we'll want to add one more just so that we can test out how this conditional rendering stuff works. Whew. Wow. And I put in the customer community login user, but you can put in whoever you would like. Okay, or whatever profile you would like. So let's go over here and we'll make this guy a customer community login user. If you remember, this is not the person that should get it. It should only be the customer community plus login user. And we're just using a customer community login user. And we're going to see this fantastic problem that makes this even more confusing because it just does. You'd think it will work, but it doesn't. Okay, so this guy should have just got an email. Hopefully, maybe. There, okay, cool. And he got an email just right now, but it gave us the click here to reset your password even though it's the wrong guy, right? It's the wrong profile. It should have conditionally rendered. It's an interesting problem. But let me show you that if you go up here to your dev console, and let me grab his ID so I make sure I have the right one. If you go up here to your dev console and you do open the execute anonymous window, stick his ID in there and do a reset password of equal to true and execute it, then you will see it doesn't render. So the conditional rendering does work. However, it doesn't for welcome emails. Interesting. Very interesting, right? So the system reset password, the reset password email will work to conditionally render this, but for some reason the welcome email shoots off so fast that it can't figure out what the profile name is. So I don't know whether it shoots off before they actually end up in, if it's in the before portion of a trigger or how that works, but it just doesn't work. So let me show you what you have to do next to make this actually work. At this point you're like, why the hell did you even waste the time, my guy? But I did. So let me show you what you have to do next. So what you have to do next is uncheck this send welcome email, and leave these still in the forgot password email boxes, and hit save. So this is the administration workspaces area of your community. Just turn off that welcome email. My gosh. Okay, we'll give it another shot since there it goes. Okay, cool. So we've turned off the welcome email. We've left the custom password reset email in the forgot password area. Cool. And we saved it. Now let's go fly a kite. No, we're gonna go build a trigger, and let's I have a trigger kind of a little bit pre-built for this on the user object. So let me go re-enable it. Because I deactivated it so it wouldn't interfere with my wonderful example there that blew my mind the first time I tried it. All right, so let's take a look at this user trigger here. So before I start getting into it, let me just first say that this is really not how you should set up your trigger. You should use a trigger framework like the SFDC trigger framework, SFDC minimal trigger framework, whatever it's called, or something like it. But I didn't want to get into that here. I wanted to keep it simple, and for people who don't know about it, or aren't familiar with it, I didn't want to confuse them. So anyway, basically what we have here is a user trigger that operates after insert. And after, I have these checks in here. Obviously, if it's only on after insert, you really don't need this check. But anyway, so we have a trigger.isAfter, trigger.isInsert. Then we're going to go on ahead and go to the this class community email manager that I set up, and a process emails method within it that takes a list of users, and we're passing it our new list of users that came through the trigger after they were inserted. So within the community email manager class, I just have this one method set up, very simple, that basically takes all the users and just does a system.reset password after they're inserted into the system. Ideally, right, you would only send out this system.reset password in the event that you had a community user or a user that you wanted this method to be run for. But in our case, or at least in my case right now, it works for everybody, so I'm just going to leave it how it is. Yeah, so let's just prove, I guess, that in the after portion of this trigger, that the system.reset password will indeed render the correct, the correct things for the user profile that we have on our user that we're creating at whatever point in time we're creating it. So let's go on back to our wonderful contact Terrence McGilligan I keep using, and we're going to disable him. And I guess my dog again is not thrilled about that. And I don't know if you can hear it, but she's really going at it. And then we're going to enable the customer user and say we're going to give him the customer community login instead of customer community plus, and see if he just gets the, if he gets the password reset portion or not. He shouldn't, because he's not a customer community plus login, he's just a customer community login. And I need to make sure that the username's unique, .lol, and lol. Good old times, a good old time watching Salesforce junk. And let's see what we got. So indeed, it did only render the portion that we wanted it to render for this email. And that's great. So that proves that this indeed will work in the after portion of a trigger. Cool. So let's get a little more granular and, show you how you might still send out a welcome email despite it being turned off. So I have built one other email template called, I guess I just called it Taco Bueno. Good old Taco Bueno. And all this is a Visualforce template. So, you can see this is a Visualforce template that just says welcome to the community. And it's set up the same way that the other one is. Recipient type contact, related to type network. So nothing crazy here. We're not doing anything crazy, but I just want to show you how you can still send out a welcome email, and also how you can conditionally send out your password resets. So let's check that out. So maybe you only want this reset password email to be sent out to certain profiles. Maybe you just want it to be sent out to your customer community plus login user and not to everybody else because it's not relevant to them. Here's what you would do. If you want to look at the profile anyway, what you're going to do is you're going to get a set ID of profile IDs and set that equal to a new set of IDs. Boom. And then we're going to go through, we're going to delete this, and we're going to go through our user and grab the profile IDs. Now, what you might be wondering is, why don't you just do profile.name like you did last time? It's because the trigger does not have any context to relationships on an object. So if I tried to do profile.name, it will actually let you, but it's going to return null. And that's obviously not useful. So if you're trying to deal with relationships within the context of a trigger, you actually have to, grab the IDs, query the other table for those records, and then create a map. So the next thing we'll do is exactly that, create a map of profiles, and not the metadata service. Although it's a great thing, I do not care about it right now. So we're going to do a profiles found map is equal to a new map ID profile, and blah, blah. And we just put our query right in here, which is fantastic. You actually don't need to declare the ID. If you didn't know, I didn't know this for like forever. You don't actually have to ever put ID in your SQL queries, and that's because Salesforce just always gives it to you. So it's always in your SQL query, even if you don't declare it, which I thought was interesting anyway. Accidentally found it out, and yeah. I shouldn't say accidentally found it out. I was reviewing some code and noticed somebody didn't have it in there, and I was like, what? And it still worked. And he was like, yeah, it doesn't matter. I figured it out one time. Anyway, so what we're going to do now is create a, now that we have that map of profile IDs, which we just declared up there, while I was rambling about junk that's probably not super important, is we're going to also declare a list of outbound emails, basically. So that's what a single email message is. Single email message. Boom, boom, boom. And this is super important because you can send out a ton of different emails all in one go, but you can only call the messaging.send email method 10 times within the context of your Apex executing. So, putting those outbound emails into a list and then sending them all at the same time obviously typically prevents you from ever having to do 10, oh my goodness, metadata service, ever doing 10 email sends, send email method calls in one go. So let's get our welcome email template. Yeah, I guess I can just go with that. And what we're going to do is select. Now, if it's the only thing that you are selecting, you should put it in there or else it will cry. But if you're selecting other fields, you don't need to put ID. So select ID from email template where the name, developer name, is equal to, I think, taco underscore bueno, or whatever it is that you declared your welcome emails developer name as. And last but not least, we're just going to flip through our user records and figure things out. What emails to send, what emails to create, blah, 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 blah. And here we go. So now what we'll do, now that we have this profile map built for us, is we'll say if profiles found map dot get usr dot profile id dot name is equal to, well, we don't need that because we declared a variable, profile name. Then we'll do a system dot reset password for our user, and we will definitely be sending them a real email. And for everybody else, what we're going to do is we're going to create a welcome email, a single email message, welcome email, that works for me, equals a, actually this will be a messaging dot rendered stored email template. So this is a method that I feel like not a lot of people understand, or it's not really ultra well documented, at least in my experience. But basically what this does is it takes a Visualforce email template and it will assign it as your email that you're going to send out, which is super useful. So let's just say welcome email templates ID. So this first parameter that it takes is the ID of your email template that we queried for up here. And the second parameter is our user, or our contact. And the last one would be our network, but we don't really need it in this instance, so I'm not going to worry about it. If you wanted to pass your network in because you had network merge fields in your email template, you could query for your network up here and then pass in its ID, and that way your email template will receive it. So basically what this is your email template ID, your recipient ID, and your related to ID. So our recipient is our contact, our related to is our network in this case. And you can pass these nulls if you have nothing in them, that's important in that template. And the next thing we'll do is we'll declare a string of, we'll say 2 addresses. And that's equal to a new string array of our addresses here. Oh wow, should have been that. And this will be user.email. So the user is the user's email is who we want to send it to. If you have other people, you can send it to them too. And then we'll say welcome email. Nope. Message dot set 2 addresses to the 2 addresses. And we will do welcome emails dot add the our welcome email message. Okay, and then down here we can just say something like if email welcome emails is not empty, then messaging dot send. Oh, send email. I can do this. We'll figure it out. Welcome emails. Okay. So, basically all we've done is we've said, okay, now what we're doing is we're saying, okay, for all users that have a profile of customer community plus login user, let's reset their password when they are inserted as a new user. And then what we're saying is for every user, let's send them this welcome email, right? And down here is the actual act of sending the email. So messaging.send email actually sends out the welcome emails. Let's save this. And now let's, travel on back to good old Terrence McGilligan and go to his contact, disable the customer community user, enable him, and we'll just try this both ways. So we've got our customer community login member who should now only receive the welcome email because he's not a customer community plus login. He's just a customer community login. And we'll do, okay, didn't mean to go that route. Maybe something more PG. And then we'll just hit save. And what did I do? Oh boy! So I've exceeded my limit in the sandbox, I guess, for the day. Which you only have 10. But you can see that it, just from this message, you can see that it attempted to send out the welcome email, and I actually. I've had it sent to me several times to prove that, but the welcome email basically just sends out a thing that says welcome to the community, right? And then it won't send me the password reset one. But just to prove that this works from the other aspects of things, since I guess I've run out of my limit on sending single email messages. If you didn't know, you can only send 10 of these out a day. I guess I've messed up this video enough time that I've exceeded that limit. Okay, real quick. I just realized that in my video, when I was rewatching it, I tell you that there is a limit of 10 email messages per day, and I don't give you context to that. That's only relevant to free developer edition orgs. In normal orgs, you basically have unlimited amount. as long as the email is associated with a contact, lead, user, I think opportunity, case, campaign, or any other custom object. So if the email's on there, then it doesn't count towards a limit. It only counts towards a limit if you just send it to an email address that's not associated to a record in your system, basically. So don't freak out too much about that limit, and let's go back to the video. So let's just attempt this now and see if we get the reset password sent to us, right? Because right now we're just seeing whether or not we can determine whether people get the password reset sent to them. This guy shouldn't, now that we've changed the way that the trigger operates. And we'll check that out. I'll just refresh a couple times. You can see nothing's coming in, so that is a great sign. But let's go on ahead and go back to our contact, Terrence McGilligan, and we'll disable him again. And we will enable him again. And we'll change him to the right kind for emails anyway. Customer community plus login user. And we'll hit save. If I can just remember to do that. And hit save. Okay. Now we've updated the records, and thankfully there is no limit on the amount of password resets you can send. And you can see that it sent out my password reset email, and it also conditionally rendered the click here to reset your password correctly. So that was a long one, but hopefully you know a lot about creating custom password resets and customer community welcome emails now. As you can tell, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing that is extremely confusing, but thankfully, hopefully it will no longer be. All right, so that's it. Make sure to check out the blog post. It'll have all this information too, as well as the code, if you want to just take it and dump it in your org. Although the user trigger, please update it. Don't put that in your org. Be sure to subscribe if you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below. I'll make sure I get to them. Any suggestions for new videos, please let me know those too. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.